Once again, it is an eclipse season on our planet Earth. This year, 3 eclipses are in line in the months of June and July. On 5th and 6th of June, the people from Asia, Europe, Africa and Australia witnessed the penumbral lunar eclipse. And on 21st of June, the world is gearing up to witness the annular solar eclipse. Another penumbral eclipse will occur on 5th of July. But it won't be visible above the Indian sky. Hello, I am Prachi Gupta and you are watching the show, The Eclipse Season 2020. In the next half an hour, I will take you through the science behind the eclipses, their existence, their importance, and the eclipses this year. To join me in the discussion and to answer your most pertinent questions, I have in the studio with me Dr. Arvind C. Ranade, Scientist F at the Vigyan Prasar that falls under the Department of Science and Technology. Welcome to the show, sir. But before we plunge into the discussion, watch this report on eclipses.
An eclipse takes place when one heavenly body such as a moon or planet moves into the shadow of another heavenly body. There are two types of eclipses on Earth, an eclipse of the moon known as lunar eclipse and an eclipse of the sun known as solar eclipse. Our planet Earth revolves around sun and moon revolves around the Earth. Moon takes almost 1 month to complete one revolution around the Earth. Every month, 2 times, sun, moon and Earth comes in a straight line. Once on the new moon and once on the full moon. This is how there should be 2 eclipses in 1 month. One should be solar eclipse and one lunar eclipse. But it doesn't happen like this. In reality, these 3 bodies don't revolve in a planar orbit. The moon's orbit is titled by 5 degrees while revolving around the Earth, and because of which sun, moon and Earth come in front of each other, but not on the same plane, and moon's shadow don't reach Earth, but it's somewhere in the space, and we don't see the sun covered behind the moon. When the moon orbits Earth, sometimes it moves between the sun and the Earth in a straight line. When this happens, the moon blocks the light of the sun from reaching Earth and moon's shadow reaches Earth, and this causes a total solar eclipse. When sometimes Earth and moon don't exactly line up, doesn't cover the sun entirely, then partial solar eclipse happens. During the partial solar eclipse, only a small part of the sun appeared to be covered from the Earth. Similarly, lunar eclipse happens when the Earth comes between the sun and Earth and blocks the sun's light from reaching the moon. Instead of light hitting the moon's surface, Earth's shadow falls on it. This is an eclipse of the moon, a lunar eclipse. A lunar eclipse can occur only when the moon is full. There are 2 types of lunar eclipses: total lunar eclipses and partial lunar eclipses. A total lunar eclipse occurs when the moon and the sun are on exact opposite sides of Earth. Although the moon is in Earth's shadow, some sunlight reaches the moon. The sunlight passes through Earth's atmosphere, which causes Earth's atmosphere to filter out most of the blue light. This makes the moon appear red to people on Earth. A partial lunar eclipse happens when Earth, moon and the sun are not perfectly aligned and only a part of moon enters Earth's shadow. In a partial eclipse, Earth's shadow appears very dark on the side of the moon facing Earth. A lunar eclipse usually lasts for a few hours. At least 2 partial lunar eclipses happen every year, but total lunar eclipses are rare.
I'm sure that this report must have left you all recalling your school days, where we were actually taught about eclipses, their types and definitions. Let's look back on that past and learn some new interesting points on this wonderful phenomenon of our solar system from our esteemed guest. Dr. Ranade, I would like to begin with a very basic question that we have already seen in this report. What are these eclipses before we discuss about the eclipses at length?
As the report itself was saying, basically it is kind of a natural, first of all it is a natural phenomena, and it is a mere coincidence that at the position where the Earth, moon and the sun are, for example, if you try to mention it in the terms of mathematics, sun being at the distance of about 15 crore kilometer and moon is at the distance of about 3 lakh, let us say 68 or maybe around 4 lakh 5,000 kilometers. So this is a mere coincidence that because of these distances and the sizes of both the object from the Earth, they come into, in a straight line and give such occasion where the shadow of moon falling onto the earth or the shadow of the earth falling onto the moon gives rise to the hide and seek game of the
Exactly. Now that we have discussed about the basics of eclipses, what is making headlines today is 21st June solar eclipse, annular solar eclipse. Please throw some light on that.
Well, I think what is important at this point of time is to understand, like, the talk of this whole show is about the season 2020, right? Eclipse 2020. So any year, if you look at the calendar, that there will be minimum of 2 eclipses which will happen.
Okay.
In any calendar year of 365 days, like let us say from January to December.
Okay.
But there are occasions even the number can increase from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5.
Yeah.
And in fact, the maximum number of eclipses that in any calendar year can go up to 7.
Okay.
So now that number game depends on the position of the moon and the sun with respect to the earth when it get aligned and perfectly fall onto this central line. So this is a game of that. And this year, as a year 2020, this year is also, I would say, as an eclipse year, is one of the important year, because this year also, from January to December, there are 6 eclipses.
6 eclipses, which is very rare.
Yes, very true. And as you correctly said, like in the month of June and July, there are 3 falling in a sequence of about 15 days differences each.
Yeah.
So this is something that we could say. And in middle of that is happening on the 21st is an annular solar eclipse. And why annular solar eclipse is basically because of the location of the moon and the sun in reference to the earth. There is a change in the angular size of the moon and the sun gives rise to the different kind of solar eclipses.
That makes a ring of a fire.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. So on 21st of June, what is basically precisely going to happen? The sun is going to be at the farthest distance. And at the same time, the moon is going to be at the comparatively at the longest distance, giving rise to that moon is not going to actually cover the entire sun, but there will be some part which will be left out, which will look like a ring. And that's the beauty of the nature, that we are going to see the ring structure of the sun on the 21st.
So at what time is the public going to get ready to witness this?
Well, I think this starts almost from the middle of the Africa. It reaches to the western part of our India. It starts from the Rajasthan in Suratgarh. So nearly about 10 hours and 12 minutes or 10 hours and 17 minutes. That's the time where the eclipse will start for the entire nation. And we all are really, looking forward to see that particular event. I think one of the important aspect of this upcoming 21st, this is the short kind of an annular solar eclipse. Short means the duration of the annularity is comparatively smaller. If I have to tell you that how much is the range, then at some places it is going to be a 9 second. But at some places it will be a 33 to 39 seconds. So that duration is, the variation is there. But the people who are looking at the 9 seconds duration will have a very fantastic kind of an events that they are going to watch it, and that's going to really.
But why is this difference in the duration?
Yeah, this is basically when you look at the path of the eclipse, right? There are different locations. From the different location, the angular size keeps on changing. And because of the change in the angular size with respect to the observer, there is a variation in the annularity at the places where the observers are.
So how is this annular solar eclipse different from other eclipses that we come to read about?
I mean, as I said, like there are basically 4 types of solar eclipses. And as I said, like it all depends on the angular size of the sun and moon with reference to the earth. So for example, when the size of the moon and the size of the sun are precisely matching. I mean, on an average, if I have to say that what is the angular size of the sun and moon, then average we say it is a 30 arc minute. So that is half of the degree. But that 30 arc minute will never remain 30 arc minute all the time. It is basically precisely as if you remember in 17th century when Johannes Kepler has proved that all the objects around the sun are moving in an elliptical orbit. So the orbit is not circular. So that means the sun is sitting at the foci, gives rise to understanding that object will come very close to us. That means it will give a bigger angular size to be seen. And when the object is going far away from us, then the angular size will be smaller. For example, to just correlate it, you can consider a truck standing in front of you about just, let us say, 30 meters away. But the same truck, if it stands about 1 kilometer away, what the image of the truck that you could see is precisely nothing but the angular size of any object that comes in our mind.
Definitely. But whenever we are discussing about solar eclipse, we cannot forget to mention Saros cycle. So obviously, please discuss about that.
Yes, this is something very important question. See, basically what one needs to remember that everything in the universe, is having their own motions. We call it as a proper motion.
Okay.
And I mean, to long extent, everything is a cyclic. That means everything has a cycle. Like Earth revolves around the Earth. Earth revolves around the sun in a 365 day, which is angular. Every year it happens.
Yeah.
Like for example, Moon revolves around the Earth. That also happens every month, right? So every 27 and a half a day, Moon completes one rotation.
Okay.
So similarly, everything is cyclic. So even the position of the Sun, Earth, Moon coming in a particular location, we call it as an ascending node or descending node.
Okay.
In terms of understanding the common man, we call it as Rahu Ketu. So these points are also fixed, and these points also keep on revolving in in an imaginary sphere that you could consider. And that revolution of this line joining the Rahu and Ketu, or let us say ascending and descending node, that also comes back to the same location after 18 years and about 11 days and 5 hours.
5 hours.
That is what is the one cycle.
Of Saros.
And that is what is called as a Saros cycle. So every 18 years and 11 days and 5 hours, you will see the eclipse is repeating with its actual geometrical shape.
Okay.
Like for example, what is happening on 21st June 2020 will again repeat after the 18 years.
18 years.
Exactly.
Okay.
The orientation of the eclipse will remain same.
Okay.
And that falls under the series. And we call it as a Saros cycle.
All right. This is very interesting to know
Yes,
about Saros
yes,
cycle,
very
and
true.
you mentioning about Rahu and Ketu that many people know about
May
it.
correlate that.
Yeah,
True,
definitely. So, next question, which is very important for our viewers especially, that why is it that we have been cautioned about not seeing the sun, the solar eclipse directly with the naked eyes?
Absolutely true, because it is very quite, logically, sun being a brightest star, right? In the sky as we see, and its intensity is enormously very high. So on an average also, we should not look at the sun.
Sun directly.
Of course, we should not look at. But if you have a solar, because ultimately, if you want to see the sun, there has to be something which can, minimize the intensity of the sun.
Definitely.
And that is why we need to have a solar filters. But rising sun or setting sun, that we can, on an average, watch it with the naked eye, because by that time, the light coming from the sun passes through the high dense atmosphere of the earth, and that minimizes a good amount of light. So rising and setting sun looking with the naked eye is something which
fine,
we always do it. Like
exactly.
we have a sunset point and sunrise points whenever you go at the
Hill stations and all, yeah.
So these are all the okay, but otherwise we should not look at the sun. And during the eclipses is never been advised. Because what happens in the eclipse, particularly people falling into the annularity belt, or let us say the totality belt, because your eyes, when our eyes are being exposed, our eyes get accustomed with the dark that is come out because of the eclipses. But within a fraction of second, what happens is the light comes from the sun.
Okay.
And of course, it comes to the, all of a sudden our retina, or let us say rods and cones of our eyes, getting exposure to the high intensity will certainly have a lot of chances that our rods and cones of the eyes will get, damaged. So we never recommend that we should look at the sun with the naked eye, especially the people falling into the annularity belt.
This discussion is going ahead in really interesting direction. But on 21st of June, get ready to witness the annular solar eclipse. But don't see it with the naked eyes, as our guest said. It is time for a short breather here. When we come back, we will talk about the penumbral lunar eclipse, which is going to occur in the month of July, and the lunar eclipses in general as well. Stay tuned.
India Science is an internet-based science TV channel initiated by the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, implemented and managed by Vigyan Prasar. India Science on the URL www.indiascience.in is a bilingual channel with content in Hindi and English. It can be accessed on any internet-enabled device. This video platform is dedicated to science and technology knowledge dissemination with a strong commitment to spreading scientific awareness, especially with Indian perspectives, ethos and cultural context. The India Science mobile app can be downloaded from the Google Play Store and Apple Store.
Welcome back. Lunar eclipse occurs when the Earth comes in between the Sun and the Moon. We recently saw an eclipse of the Moon or lunar eclipse on the 6th of June. And we are going to see another lunar eclipse on 5th and 6th of July. Let's understand the lunar eclipse from our expert Dr. Arvind Ranade. Let's resume our discussion where we actually has left. So we have discussed about solar eclipses. Now we have to discuss about lunar eclipses. We cannot leave them behind because one is yet to be seen on 6th of July. So please tell us more about that.
Yeah, in fact, first of all, it is very important, as I said, like on 21st of June, when the annular solar eclipse is happening, is almost at the nodal point. That is exactly, one can say, at a Rahu or Ketu. So what happens is that if there is this isn't coincidence, if this such kind of an occasion comes, then there is a chances of having the two lunar eclipses. One is prior to the solar eclipse and one after the solar eclipse. And precisely this is happening because on the 21st of June, when the Sun, Earth, Moon is lying on the straight line as well as falling onto the nodal point, one lunar eclipse happened on the 5th or 6th of June. Similarly, the lunar eclipse is going to happen on 6th of or 5th of July. This is what we call it as a eclipse season. Right?
Yeah.
And what happens is precisely exactly opposite of what happens on the solar eclipses. Now the shadow of the Earth is going to fall onto the Moon.
Yeah.
Now what is important here is to understand any shadow, on an average also, even for us also, when we look at the shadow will have two types of shadow. One is called the, let us say we call it as a dark shadow, which is called the umbra. And there is a fainter shadow. We call it as an penumbra. Right? So now the fact of the matter is, it is possible that some part of the, let us say Earth also as well as Moon also, some part can go from the fainter shadow, that is called the penumbral shadow, and sometimes the object goes through the darker shadow or umbral shadow. And precisely on this last June, when 5th or 6th of June, the Moon also passed through the penumbral shadow of the Earth. And again on the 6th or 5th of the July, the Moon is again going to pass through the penumbral shadow of the Earth.
All right.
So this is something, because that's the reason we are not really going to see the what we call it as a red moon. We're not going to see the lot of changes on the moon because it is not going to pass through the darker shadow.
But it will be same like the last one.
Exactly. That is how we can say.
So what is the probability, or how rare, or is the case of happening these kind of eclipses in one go, like in the one season? Like this time it is happening in the month of June and July. Three eclipses are happening. So what is the probability of these happening?
Exactly. So precisely what I said, let us say on the 21st of June, what is happening is that if you just imaginarily think of three objects in a straight line, and if there is a center to center matching, of course it's a hypothetical, but if you consider center to center matching, that means what is happening, they are precisely falling in a straight line and meeting exactly on the nodal location. But now what is important is a shadow. It is a game of the entire shadow. Now, what is the shadow? Shadow have a different sizes. Like for example, let us consider the shadow of the moon falling onto the Earth, especially on the 21st of June. Then the darker shadow covers only 250 kilometer area of the Earth. So it is the what we call it as the area of the circle. So it is just 250 square kilometer. So the people who are falling into this 250 kilometer will be able to see the annularity. However, there is a large portion of the Earth which falls into the what we call as a penumbral shadow, which goes into thousands of kilometers. Okay, and those people will see what we call it as a partial eclipse. Like for example, on the 21st of June, there are only certain portion from Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Haryana. These people are only going to see the annularity. But rest of the entire country will see the partial eclipse because they are falling into the penumbral shadow. And precisely same thing is happening on coming July. The moon is going to pass through the penumbral shadow.
Dr. Ranade, since we are talking about lunar eclipse, it is a fact that lunar eclipse happen only during a full moon. Why?
See, when to have the eclipse, we need to have the shadow of the moon falling onto the Earth. So in that case, when it has to happen in a daytime. Now, if it has to happen in a daytime, what is going to happen? The sun will be on the one side of the Earth, and precisely moon also has to come onto the same side. And then can possibly happen, and having a daytime is possible only when there is a what we call as a new moon, which is called as an Amavasya. So any eclipses you talk about will always happen on the Amavasya. But one of the interesting part that you were asking, that every Amavasya need not have to have a solar eclipse, right? It is precisely because the orbit in which the moon is revolving has a tilt of about 5 degree with respect to the ecliptic.
Yeah.
Ecliptic is a orbit in which Earth is revolving around the sun. Okay.
Does it have a scientific basis of being tilted?
Well, again, very precisely, this is a what we call it. It's a, by nature we see that the moon of the orbit of the moon is 5 degree tilted.
All right.
Why it is 5 degree tilted is a very big question, and we have no answer why it is. Like for it is asking like why Earth is 23.5 degree tilted. We have no answer, but of course, such kind of answers will come when we try to look at the origin of, let us say, formation of the solar systems.
Okay. All right. So in general, just explain to our viewers and to me as well that what are the different kinds of lunar eclipses that, as we have discussed about solar eclipses as well.
Exactly. Like first of all, what we see is the penumbral eclipse, when the moon passing through the center shadow of the Earth.
Yeah.
There is a chances that the entire eclipse will pass through the penumbra. So this is penumbral eclipse. There is an occasion when the moon will pass through the half of the darker shadow of the Earth, that is the umbra. We will have a lunar eclipse, but will not have a total lunar eclipse, it will be a partial lunar eclipse. And when the occasion, when everything matches, the entire moon passes through the darker shadow of the Earth, which is 9,000 kilometer at the distance of the moon, then the moon passing in the 9,000 kilometer darker portion will give us a chance to see the moon as a red moon. Right? Or we call it as a copper moon, and that is what we call a total lunar eclipse. But in this particular season, there is no total lunar eclipse, but it is a penumbral lunar eclipse, one before the total solar eclipse, before the total annular eclipse, or one is the after annular.
Okay. So one more question. This is very interesting to me. What are these blood moons, blue moons, and super moons?
Very good question.
They're very interesting to even hear out. There are different kinds of moons we have.
Yes, you will quite often listen to these words. In fact, there is a phrase, once in a blue moon.
Exactly.
Definitely. Now, blue moon is what, as I said, like when moon revolve around the Earth.
Okay.
Right, as I said, it completes the revolution around the Earth in a 27.32 days. Right, this is what, and that is what we basically call it as a cycle, which is a lunar cycle. Now, another which is Amavasya to Amavasya, or let us say Purnima to Purnima, from new moon to new moon or full moon to full moon. That is about a 30-day cycle, or precisely 29.5 days. So, every 29.5 day, the what we call it as a one Amavasya to second Amavasya, or maybe one full moon to second full moon is going to happen. But if you remember, what is the length of the month? There is a 28.
29.5.
Yeah, 28 is a February, sometimes 29 February.
Yeah.
But on an average, month can be 30 days or 31 days.
Yeah.
Now, what happened precisely, that 29.5, there is a chances that can fall in a same month. Correct. Because it is like one Amavasya to one next Amavasya is about 29.5. So, there is a probability that in any single month, if two, what we call it as a full moons occurs, that means two Purnima happening in one single month, then the second kind of a full moon is called as a blue moon. This is what we call it as a once in a...
But it doesn't happen very often.
Exactly. This never happens quite frequently. It happens after a long gap, and that's why we call it as a once in a blue moon. Now, what about the super moon? Now, as I said, again, I refer to what we said about the Kepler. Kepler said that, moon also revolves around the Earth in an elliptical orbit.
Yeah.
So, moon also comes very close to the Earth at the distance of about 3,65,000 or 68,000 kilometers.
Okay.
But at one point of time, moon also goes very far away from the Earth. And that distance is 4,05,000 kilometers. And if you take again the subtraction of these two numbers, then moon precisely comes 50,000 kilometers closer to the Earth and goes 50,000 kilometers away from the Earth within a cycle of just 27.5 days. So what happens is that if within that 27.5, there is a chances that there is a full moon.
Okay.
For example, if that happens that there is a Purnima, and at the same time the moon is very close to us, then what is going to happen is we will be able to see the larger size of the moon, angular size, and that is what precisely we call it as a super moon.
Super moon.
Correct. So this is a super moon. That was the once in a moon, and of course what is the red moon is basically having a total lunar eclipse.
So we have an answer to this phrase that we often hear, once in a blue moon. Our planet casts a shadow on the moon, and at times we get to enjoy seeing it in the night. And this time, it is happening on the intervening night of 5th and 6th of July. Time to snip into a short breather. Stay tuned.
India Science is an internet-based science TV channel initiated by the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, implemented and managed by Vigyan Prasar. India Science on the URL www.indiascience.in is a bilingual channel with content in Hindi and English. It can be accessed on any internet-enabled device. This video platform is dedicated to science and technology knowledge dissemination with a strong commitment to spreading scientific awareness, especially with Indian perspectives, ethos and cultural context. The India Science mobile app can be downloaded from the Google Play Store and Apple Store.
Welcome back after the break. Resuming our discussion with the guest here, Dr. Ranade, there's no denying the fact that all the scientists go around chasing eclipses. Why is that?
Well, let us say after the, in 21st century, it is very, I really will not, strongly say that now scientists are really chasing the eclipses because of the development in the science and technology. Now, eclipses are no more, kind of an something which you can't do it.
Okay.
Because of the coronagraph and other kind of an technique, we actually can do the having an eclipses with our techniques which are available. So we actually can have such kind of an eclipses to be made for the study of various aspects of what you say. Like for example, we need to have such kind of a solar eclipses to be, observed to know and understand the atmosphere of the sun.
All right.
So nowadays we really don't need it. But yes, chasing of an eclipse do happen. But now they are largely been enthusiastic people or the amateurs, those who really want to enjoy that particular phase. So there are occasions you will see that when there is a solar eclipse, especially the total solar eclipse, there are a group of people who actually go into the flights and try to go along with the path of the annular totality, and because they get a longer duration to observe the eclipse.
But whenever we talk about eclipses, grahan, so there are so many superstitions associated with that. Do they have any, exact basis that you mentioned about Rahu Ketu as well? So do they really matter?
In fact, I think, this has a very different kind of an answer. Number one, if you try to look at whatever we call it as a superstitions or maybe the thought process or the traditional facts that we used to follow, those facts and traditions, if you try to see, was very well in ancient period, right?
Yeah.
When there was not much development or
Scientific
understanding
evolution,
of the phenomena was not there. So then, of course, because we are the human beings and these phenomena are part of our life since the time we know about the human beings on the earth. So that time, not much the facts were known to us. So there was, because ultimately, in fact, I would say, during the eclipses, not to observe is good in terms of an scientific matter, because we don't recommend to watch the eclipses with the naked eye. And in the tradition also, if we say, no, we should not watch the eclipse, it's perfectly all right. But if you say that during the eclipse, we should not eat or we should not, go out.
Exactly, that's what I was asking about.
Because there is no kind of an evidence or something that you could say, if I go out during the eclipse, something go wrong with me. No, it is not, because this is a natural phenomena, frequent phenomena. As I said, there is occasion within 1 year, there's 7 times such kind of phenomena are going to happen. But I think we'll have to look into those superstitions from the perspective of the time when it was being ancient times.
Definitely, I have got answers to all the questions I had since I was a child on eclipse. Thank you, Dr. Ranade, for being on the show.
Namaskar. Thank you.
Eclipses are not a new phenomenon. They are an incredible sight to behold. They have been happening for millions of years and will go on even longer. What makes it fascinating to read about is that it is about our planet Earth, the Sun and the Moon. Time to wrap up this episode, and don't forget to share your feedback on the email ID flashing on your screens. Namaskar.